This drawing lesson will introduce you to some of the special adaptations that penguins have that allow them to survive in the extreme cold of the Antarctic climate. There's no significance to the numbers. It's not like number 1 is most important and number 2 is second most important. It's just kind of random. I just tried to put the facts about where they were on the body. So if we talk about the feet, it'll be on the bottom. Talk about the head, it'll be on the top. Stuff like that. So we're just going to go around like this, clockwise, and just go around the body and talk about each one. But first, you're going to have to draw the body. As you can see, I've given you nothing but bones, and the skeleton is a bit simplified. For example, here in the neck, if you look at the real neck bones, they have really complicated shapes. So I've just kind of smoothed it out. It's not going to really matter for our drawing that we draw every bone perfectly right. Just we need to know approximately where they are. So this is good enough for our purposes. Drawing in the body is going to be very easy. We're just going to start up here. Notice that the beak is actually part of the skull. There's a hole for the eye and nose, and of course there's a hole which is the mouth, but right now the bottom part is up so you can't see the mouth. So the skin starts right about here. You know the beak is hard, but then if you would touch the top of a penguin's head, it will be soft and feathery. So we're just going to start something like this along here. Start to make some skin like this up along the top. Down here, make sure you allow plenty of room. Don't go too close to these neck bones. Make your penguin nice and fat. We're going to put some fat in there in a minute, so allow room for it. Come way out around the bones like this, way out. Around like this, and then around the tailbones. And then if you'd like to, you can kind of indicate that there's feathers there. That's the tail. Go under like this. And then kind of like that. You can pause the video if you need more time, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how to draw the other side. Again, leave the front part of the beak alone. Just start somewhere like under the chin here. Now when you get to here, start aiming for down here. You see how there's some little wing bones that go up like this, and there's a little space. In fact, you could go ahead and kind of go like this. Make the line go like that, and then just kind of bring it up like this. And then continue that line down like this and around like that. The foot. And then you could go ahead and go around those little bones and make the wing. And then we'll make the other wing. Now you see this is the keel bone right here, the sternum I call it, or the keel. And you see how these two end right here? Well, again, this is where we want to put our line like this for the other wing. So go like that, down there, and then around the wing bones, like that. And then if you'd like to finish off this leg, you can kind of make it like a little line like that. If you want to make the leg look like it's coming behind this wing. Now this is optional. You don't have to draw these names of the bones in, but if you're curious, this bone right here is the humerus, which is the same as the bone that runs from our shoulder to our elbow. So this will be the penguin's shoulder, and that would be the elbow, the equivalent of the elbow. And so this would be the wrist down here, and these would be like the ulna and the radius. And the lower part of our arm, that would be the wrist, and then these would be the phalanges. These are like the finger bones down here. So this would be like the shoulder blade right here, called the scapula, and this would be kind of like the collarbone, clavicle, the collarbone. These things here are called furcula. Now you don't have a furcula because you don't have wings. These are the wishbone bones. Fur, F-U-R, cula, C-U-L-A. So that's a bone that you don't have, but penguins do. And then this would be the sternum. I'm going to put this in parentheses, S-T-E-R, sternum. So then in the leg, this would be the knee, right here. See the little kneecap? And here is a picture of a penguin skeleton swimming, and the yellow arrows are pointing to the knees. So you can't see the penguin's knees. Its body would be like this. Draw in a little, if I drew a line in here, if you can see that, the skin kind of comes down like this. You see that? You only ever see the penguin's like ankles. You really never see their knee. It's tucked up inside their body like that. So this would be the femur way back here. And this would be like the tibia here, below the knee. And then that would be the ankle down here. Now we're going to draw in the esophagus and stomach over here when we get to this side. But we're going to let it go for right now. So let's go back up to the top here and draw a squiggly line coming in from the nose here. Now this is going to be very not anatomically correct, because to draw this, you can't even find pictures of inside of a penguin's nose. I've searched online, I can't even find one. But it's kind of this complicated. Just draw a little ziggy-zaggy little thing like this. Alright, good enough. So that's the passages inside its nose and its sinuses. It's got this complicated little design here, so the air has to go in and out and around this little maze before it comes out. So what this does is it helps to absorb the heat. So when the penguin breathes out, its lungs are down here, and it's going to breathe out. The air is going to come up here, go through this little maze, and all the heat in that air is going to be reabsorbed. So when the air comes out, it's going to be very cool. So number one is nasal passages reabsorb heat. A penguin's breath is, and you can write cool or cold. The point is that it's not hot. If you breathe on your hand, you can feel the heat in your breath. So if a penguin did that, it wouldn't feel warm. It would feel nice and cool. And that's because it can save the heat, keep it from being wasted going outside its body. Number two, the word that's missing in here is insulation. Insulation. And there's two major parts to this insulation. Number one is fat, also called blubber. And so many polar and Antarctic animals have blubber. Seals and whales and polar bears and penguins. They all have this thick layer of fat that is very, very good at keeping the heat in. And B, the other part of this, is that they have air pockets. Air pockets trapped under feathers. So the feathers are very, very good at holding warm air close to the body. And here the note says tiny muscles at the base of feathers can control how much air gets trapped. Now they do have to make sure they don't get too much air trapped in there, because you don't want to float when you dive. They have to go down deep in the water to get fish, and it'd be like dragging a balloon down with you. You know, you don't want to float. So it can kind of get rid of some of that air when it wants to go down and swim. And then when it comes up again, it can fluff out and move around to get the air all back in under its feathers again. So we're going to illustrate these two. Let's do the feathers first, the bee. Let's just go like this. Start up here and just kind of go like this. This is a cross section. You can see how I can zoom in a little bit. And I'm just going to go like this. I just don't even have to lift my pencil. Just go loop, de-loop, de-loop. Give that penguin a nice thick coat of short, warm feathers. We can even point here to the feathers. Now when you're done with that, you can take a yellow or a light tan, and we're going to give it some insulating fat right under the skin here. Put a nice big layer of blubber. Blubber is just very thick fat. It's kind of interesting to do a demonstration about how fat is so good at insulating against cold. You can stick your finger in a jar of cooking shortening, like you would use to make pie crust or cookies. You could even use butter to do this, and just coat your finger with it, and then stick your finger into ice water and see if you can feel the cold. And you'll be really amazed at how well it protects you from the cold. Alright, so all around here inside the skin, got this nice layer of fat. Don't make it too thick right here, because we're going to draw something here. Don't get carried away right there. There. Okay, I'll zoom back out. Great. Now something that's kind of related to the feathers is number 3. This has to do with the color of the feathers. And of course you've seen penguins before. Basically it's black on the back and white on the front. You know, penguins always have that adorable white puffy on the front, decorated at the back. So your little swimming penguin right here, why don't you make his top side dark like that. Now there's some variety. Some penguins look more stripy than others, and some have a little more black or less white, but basically they're black on their back and white on their stomach. Now this doesn't really matter if you're just standing around on the ice, but if you're swimming for food, and penguins spend a lot of time in the water looking for food, this is a great type of camouflage. And number 3, the word that should go in here is counter shading. Just like the word counter, C-O-U-N-T-E-R, and then shading. That's the type of camouflage where the top is dark and the bottom is light. Could be black or dark blue. This kind of counter shading you see in a lot of ocean animals. It's not always black, but it's some kind of dark color on the top. So the way this works is if you're a predator swimming below and you're looking up, you're looking at the penguin against the sky, right? You're looking at the top of the water and you'll see a light sky. So you'll have white blending in with the light sky. Now if you're a predator that's looking down, you're swimming above the penguin or you're in the air looking down, you're looking at the bottom of the water, which is dark, so you're going to see dark against dark. So whether you're looking up or down, the penguin is at least somewhat camouflaged by its coloring. Number 4, you can tell we're going to start a word with a vowel because I have an oil gland provides a greasy substance to coat feathers, keeping them waterproof. And I have a picture of a penguin who is accessing its oil gland. See, it's got right above its tail, if they move the feathers away, there's a little bump there, a little gland, and it's oozing out oil, and the penguin can just stick its beak back in there and rub its beak against the oil gland, and its beak will get all oily, and then it can rub that oil on the rest of its feathers. So I've got another picture here. You can see there's the little gland sticking out right there. So you'll see the penguins spending a lot of time doing what they call preening, and they're rubbing their beak on their feathers. And a lot of times what they're doing is they're taking that oil and we're rubbing the oil all over on their onto all their feathers to make them waterproof. So right here, let's make a little bump. You can erase a couple of the feathers here. Make a little oil gland bump. You can just point to it like that. And I can put my feathers back. Right there. Doesn't matter what your bump looks like, just a little lump will do. So making them self-waterproof is another very, very good protection against the cold. Now down here, number 5, this is where you're going to do a little bit of art. You're going to make your own little penguin here. Let me zoom in again. And all you have to do is make long oval going up, and we're going to draw something else over here, so stay close to number 5. I'm going to draw an oval and then a little circle on top like this, and then you kind of can turn it into a penguin standing sideways, give it a little beak like that, give it a little flipper like that. And then down here what we want to do is make little feet coming out. It doesn't matter if it's not drawn well, it'll be fine. Whatever you draw is going to be fine. Just make a little foot coming out, and then make the toe part going up like this. You see how let's zoom in a little bit more. You see how he's kind of going up? He's standing on his heels like this. I can draw the other one like that. I'll give him a tail. Actually, the tail is pretty important here, because if you're balancing on your heels, give him his tail down like this. The tail actually acts as a third foot, letting him balance. And he can even kind of tuck his feet over. You can kind of tuck it up under like this. His front feathers sometimes can even come over like that. You can tuck his toes up under there. And I've got a picture of a guy doing this. I guess that's a emperor penguin. And you can see how he's standing on his heels and his feet growing up like that. So that keeps their toes off the ice. Gets their toes a little break from being on the cold ice. So you don't have to. If you don't want to put this over top, you can if you want to. Or you can just make him go like that and make his feet go up. That's fine too. Make them a little bit black. There we go. Don't fuss with it too much, though. This is just a diagram to illustrate this. It's not a portrait of a penguin, so don't worry about it too much. Okay, so that's another little trick they can do. Keep their feet warm. And then over here, actually I'm going to stay zoomed in because we'll read this and then we're going to draw something right here. Number 6. Now this is a little more technical. This is an anatomical feature with a fancy Latin name. It's R-E-T-E, rete. It's the first part of the word. Well, the first word is 2 words. Mirabile. mirabile. It looks like mirabile. And that is Latin for amazing network. So the rete part is the net. You'll see that a lot in biology, like endoplasmic reticulum, reta, means net or network. Mirabile is related to the word miracle. That's the part that means amazing. This arrangement of blood vessels keeps heat from escaping through the feet and toes. Now this is a general feature you will find in other animals too. It's not specific to penguins. For example, here's an animal that has to fight heat. It's a desert animal, kind of an antelope type animal. And it's got a rete mirabile here, which helps it to deal with the heat. So this guy's got the opposite problem of a penguin. He's trying to keep heat out, and the penguin's trying to keep heat in, but this same little mechanism can help. So since we're going to draw the feet, let's finish the feet right now. I didn't do that before. Since we're going to talk about them, let's draw around the toe bones. And we're going to give each one a big, thick black toenail. Penguins have really large black toenails. And then don't go in too far. Don't go too far between here, because it does have somewhat of a web type, slightly webby feet. Not as webbed as some animals, but a little bit. Okay, and over here, same thing. Nice big black toenail. And here's a close-up of a penguin foot. If you want to see the texture, you want to see how they have just a tiny bit like of webbing in here. It's not completely webbed like a duck, but they do have a little bit, and they definitely have really big black toenails. And then we're going to draw a very, very quick little sketch of just very light going around like this. So this would be a schematic drawing. This is not an accurate drawing. It's just a very rough drawing to show where blood vessels go. All right, so, but we can tell it's supposed to be a foot. That's the main point. And then you're going to need red and blue, or you could use like orange and green. The point is you need a hot, warm color like red or orange or yellow, and a cool color like blue or green. So when we see those colors, we think warm, cool, hot, cold, so it works out well. So take your warm color, and we're going to make, they also represent arteries and veins, a little confusing, but we use them to represent the blood vessels that are going to and from the heart. So we're going to make start of a blood vessel. So let's see, this one, the blood is coming down into the foot. Can make a arrow going that way, and through the vein. So this is the artery, and this is the vein. So the blood would be going back up. So it's going to come down through the artery and go through the foot, a little maze, and then back up. It's going to be like a giant loop. However, what it does here, instead of this nice warm blood that's just coming right from the heart, it's got nutrients and oxygen, it's nice and warm, and if it goes out through the feet and touches the ice, the blood is going to get chilled down, and you don't want to waste that heat. So it does a couple little, it has a little network here, it crosses over, just make a couple little lines like this, and then tangle them up. Just make a couple little tangled lines with the blue. Yours does not need to look like mine. It can just look like just a little tangly thing. Just so it looks like they're interacting a little bit. And then comes back like this. Like this. Okay, so that's the rete mirabile. If we just draw a line right there, that little tangle right there. Now, make sure, let's use the blue. Let's pretend now that the blue represents cool, because the vein blood is not always cool, but anyways, they use blue to represent veins. So it comes down here, and then just draw a little, circulates all through the feet like this, and we can make it look like a little capillary network. It gets to be really tiny microscopic blood vessels down here, and the blood circulates all through the feet like this, all through the toes like this, and then up and out. So it gives up all its heat right here. Nice warm artery blood. The heat goes into the vein right here. The blood stays in, but the heat goes back up like this, so that the main point is the blood that flows through the feet is cool, and you're not wasting heat out on the ice. So penguins have cold feet. They have cold breath. They also have cold feet. But inside their body, up here, they're toasty warm. And that's most important, to keep your heart and lungs and your bones nice and warm. Okay, so that's the rete mirabile. That's the most technical one we're going to cover. That's, like I said, that's a feature you see in other animals and other places too. Alright, so let's just go over here. Well, we're right here. There's an easy one, number 7. You probably know this one already. Penguins have an instinct to blank when in a group, and you've seen this. They all get together, and what do? They huddle. H-U-D-D-L-E. They huddle in a group. We see pictures of emperor penguins in these big, big groups, you know, in the winter of Antarctica, all huddling together. And they also have an instinct to take turns of who's in the middle and who's on the outside of the huddle. They rotate so that you're not always on the outside, you're not always on the inside. So they take turns braving the winds on the outside. And now we're to number 8. Know something in the feet, because they make so much heat, and that would be muscles, M-U-S-C-L-E-S, looks like muscles. And you have no muscles in your hands, not many in your feet either, same as penguins. So you can do this experiment on yourself, and it's valid for penguins. What you need to do is take one hand and grab like down here on your arm, and then wiggle your fingers. Just the tops of your fingers even. And if you wiggle your fingers, you'll be able to feel down here, you'll be able to feel muscles moving. So, like a penguin, you have very few muscles in your hands or feet, just tendons, like little strings, thin white strings. The tendons go up like this, so when you pull, the muscle pulls on them like a puppet. The tendons will yank on the toes or the fingers and pull them. So this is good because the muscles are up here behind all this fat. They're insulated, they're nice and warm, and muscles generate a lot of heat. Same thing here, you don't want heat leaking out in the feet because they're against the cold ice. So you want the heat staying up here. So we just don't put muscles in the feet, and we avoid the issue of wasting heat. Okay, number 9. We're going to draw number 9, the wings. Goes in here first. The wings are adapted to pushing through water instead of flying through air. So here's an air wing. Kind of go out like this, and then just draw some maybe like this, go like that. Okay, this is for flying. Flying wings are long, and they're thin, and they are flexible and light. Which are great if you're going to fly. Right? You want something that's long and thin and flexible and light. Boy, if you're going to dive underwater, this is a bad design. This is not what you want, because you want something that's dense and yeah, if it's too flexible, it's not going to be able to push the water. If you've probably noticed swimming, it's hard to push the water away. You move really slowly because you're pushing against the water. So you want something that's thick and stiff and you can push against the water. So what you want is a wing. And we'll just put here swim. You want a wing that is short instead of long. And you want one that is thick instead of thin. And you want one that is stiff instead of flexible. And basically heavy or dense. I could put dense there instead of light. You don't want it to be solid so it can sink. And we'll say more about being dense here at number 11. We'll talk about how the bones help with that. So you've got specialized wings for being in the water. And number 10, the blank stores fish. Okay, for this one we're going to have to draw, go to over here, and we're going to draw the food pipe, the esophagus coming down like this, and then a big like storage bag. Let's see, the esophagus can go on like that. Draw like a bag coming off like that. It's called the crop. You can label it there. And also number 10, that's the missing word. Crop. Now this is a very common structure in birds, and other animals have this too. If you've ever dissected an earthworm, you ran into a structure called the crop. So it's not just in birds. And the crop is just a storage bag. So you could put little fishes in here. There we go. Krill. Whatever it catches, it's going to store in there. This is not the stomach. The stomach would be down here. If you want to draw the stomach, we could kind of, it kind of is like wedged in behind here. Kind of like that. Overlapping anatomy parts down here. Now I'm not sure how a penguin controls this, how it knows when to send food, how much food to send down, I'm not sure. But it does know to make sure that this crop is full so that it can take food back for its chicks. This is the transport system for feeding the babies. Of course, penguins don't have pockets, they don't have grocery carts, they don't have cars and bags and trunks or anything, so this is it. All they have is this internal bag. Now this can really stretch, so this penguin, when its crop is full, boy, this bag could really get large, filled with lots and lots of food. So the penguin would really look big in front with this crop all filled up. And then what it does to feed its babies, you've probably seen pictures of an adult penguin opening its mouth. It kind of leans over and opens its mouth, and the baby chick will put its beak up into the parent's beak and reach up. So what the parent does is kind of squeeze the crop here and force some of this food out the mouth, and then the baby can kind of eat it. So it's not vomiting, right? It's not coming up from the stomach. It's only coming up from the storage bag. So the adult penguin is not feeding vomit to the chicks. If it were from the stomach, it would be considered vomit, but it's only from the crop. And it's not been digested. There's no real digestion that takes place here. It's just a storage bag. Okay, 11. The answer to what kind of bones? This is solid. Bones allow the penguin to sink in water. Flying birds have hollow bones. And I have a picture here to demonstrate this. Okay, there is a solid bone. We have these kind of bones. And there's a hollow looking bone. Of course, this is good because you do not want big heavy bones if you're going to fly. But if you're a swimming bird, you don't want this. And as would be expected, we find solid bones in the penguin like we have. Number 12. The tongue and the mouth are covered with sharp blank that catch slippery fish. Well, let's go and fill in the word, and I'll show you a picture. Here's your another good biology word for the day. Papillae. P-A-P-I-L-L-A-E. So what's a papilla? Well, let's look at some. Actually, you have papillae on your tongue. You might call them taste buds. The little bumps on your tongue. The taste buds, the actual buds, are microscopic. You can't see them. So what you're really seeing, what you call taste buds, are papillae. So the penguin has papillae too, but they look like this. There's a chick. You can really see these. Look at that. It's got very long, spiky papillae. It has them on the roof of its mouth also. And notice how they're going backwards. They're sharp and they're pointing down towards the throat. Here's another penguin where you can see them on the roof there. So what is this good for? Well, when you're catching slippery fish, if you ever tried to catch a fish with your hands, they're slippery, right? You really need to make sure to get enough to eat. So as soon as they catch the fish, these little hooks kind of grab in and help pull the fish in. So that's how you deal with a slippery fish. So let's draw a tongue here like this. That's the tongue. And then make sharp little spiky things going backwards. Now if you have a cat or you know someone with a cat that you can borrow, you can see pretty sharp little spiky things on a cat tongue too. Not quite like a penguin. Not quite that spiky. Actually, I should make mine look even spikier. Maybe not spiky enough. Those things are a little pretty sharp. But cats have something like this that you can see. That's why it feels really kind of rough. If a cat licks you, you're like, ow, it's like sandpaper tongue. That's because it has a little sharp papillae. And then number 13, you might be able to guess this one. Its eyes function best underwater, so it can see to hunt its prey. Now this is not an exhaustive list. You can probably find a few others if you go looking for information. And if you find some other things, you can add notes or add on the back. That's enough for one page. And then if you'd like to do one more thing, you can quit now if you'd like to. But if you want to, I'll show you some extra words to fill in down here. This doesn't really have to do with adaptation, but this is just something interesting about types of penguins. There are really only 6 types. They all fall into one of these 6 categories. There's the great penguins, and these of course are the emperor, and the king. And these guys are big, 3-4 feet tall, over a meter tall. Then there's the brush-tailed, and these are, well, the one here you can tell, the chin strap. You can see that. Chin strap, and the gentoo, G-E-N-T-O-O. It's a very common penguin. We've got millions of those. And also the Adelie, A-D-E-L-I-E, is a brush-tailed. And you can see here in the picture, look at this little penguin, it's got a very long tail. They really do have brushy tails. And here's a picture of a gentoo tail. You can see why they call it a brush tail. It really does look long and brushy. And then there's the banded penguins. And they're very easy to spot. They have these big stripes. And those would be the Humboldt, B-O-L-D-T, the Humboldt. And it would be the Magellanic, if you write the word Magellan, and then add I-C, Magellanic. Also, I think the Galapagos penguin, and also the South African penguin are banded. And then there's the yellow-eyed penguin, and that's kind of its own little group. They're more rare. You don't see them as much in books. Kind of not as commonly seen. And then there's the crested. These guys are super easy to spot, and they include the macaroni and the rockhopper. And then there's lots of other subspecies. There's probably maybe even 10 of them. The royal. But they're all a variation on crested. And of course, the word macaroni doesn't have anything to do with noodles. It was a fashion in the 1700s in England and maybe other places on the continent. The men would dress up very fancy costumes. And one of the things they did was put feathers in their hat. And that fashion style was called macaroni. So when the sailors from England went down to the Antarctic waters and they saw these penguins with these feathers, they said, hey, they look like they're macaroni, like they're dressing up in this fashion. So they called them macaroni. And then the little penguins, you have the little blues and the Australian. And sometimes they also get called fairy penguins, I think. Some places they call them fairy penguins because they're so tiny. So there's your little penguin classification guide.